guys, welcome to another video. I have never been in a game jam. I've been thinking about this for a long time and I would like to try some. Few days ago I went to itch.io and looked for an interesting one, and I saw that in just few days GameMaker Toolkit's Game Jam is starting. What a coincidence. And here we are, it's 7 PM Friday and Game Jam just started. The theme is roles reversed. This is really interesting theme. Right now I have no ideas at all. After half an hour I came up only with one idea, and this is it. City builder, but you don't build the city, you destroy it. Well, I stick with this first and only idea rather than spend another hour thinking about something better. So, here we go. I decided to try 3D for a change. It will be easier than painting a bunch of buildings, plus the 3D could suit it a little bit better, I think. First of all, for this type of game is important camera movement, so I start with that. I use Cinemachine for cameras in every project, and in this one it is the same. Although I could probably try the basics of the game first, destroying buildings, and so after about an hour of trying, I managed to create a pretty decent camera control with zoom and camera rotation. And even then I didn't do the basic gameplay, but I started creating the HUD. My thought was that there would be 3 different skill trees: environmental, pandemic and others. But after a while I came up to my senses and realized that I only had 48 hours and it wouldn't be easy to make so many disasters. So I reduced it to just 2 trees or branches. And now it was finally time to destroy the buildings. Tornado seems the easiest to me, so I started with that. It's actually just a cylinder that moves randomly, one repeating coroutine that changes the direction of movement once in a time, and the destruction itself is just in the on-trigger stay function. It causes some damage when it is colliding with the building. Nothing special. Of course, it wasn't that simple. I first tried using rigid bodies and applying force, but it caused jittering when moving the camera. So I ended up with using transform translate, and for a smoother change of motion I always modified the new vector with the lerp function. At 10 PM, after 3 hours of work, I needed a little break, so I took a shower and refreshed myself a little bit. After that I added another disaster, storm, which is basically and absolutely the same as a tornado. I just tweaked speed, size and other variables. So I already have 2 usable disasters, but no real option to add them to the game. So I went ahead and added some functionality to those on-screen buttons. Basically, when a button is clicked, I create an object that shoots a raycast to the ground and finds out where the mouse is, and when the mouse is clicked, it creates a disaster, depending on which of the buttons was clicked, which is a simple switch statement. It's almost midnight and I call it a day. How we say in Czech Republic, ráno moudřejší večera. That means, well, I would loosely translate it as morning is wiser than evening. So I'm going to wrap it up today and see you tomorrow. It's Saturday morning, guys, a little after 7 AM. I made myself black tea and I'm back to work. However, the plan for today is complete graphics, all buildings and their variants damaged or completely destroyed, and also UI. I would like to add all disasters to the game and especially make an AI that will play against the player. It will build buildings, repair them, etc. The question is how complicated it will be. For this prototype, making difficult and complex AI will be a little over 48 hours limit. Well, we'll see. I think that's more than enough work for one day, and I haven't opened Blender for several months, so it won't be fun at all, but here we go. Besides modeling simple low poly buildings in Blender, I also added an earthquake this morning that use a Cinemachine impulse source and listener, And another disaster was a fire, which gradually expands to the surrounding buildings. I made it so perfect that one fire becomes two more, and so on, practically endlessly. So it cannot be extinguished, but I will deal with that another time. Now it's 1 p.m. and it's time to eat. So I'll make a quick lunch, but since I somehow failed to buy groceries this week, I will have to improvise a bit. Anyway, see you later. It's time to make this, finally, a game. So let the player have some challenges. The AI will build new buildings and roads. For a long time I was thinking about how to do it at all, because it's not a simple artificial intelligence. You see a player, go to him and shoot. This is much more complex problem. Well, in the end I came up with the idea that it would not be so complicated. I would build the whole city in front, and the buildings that needs to be built would be deactivated. And the script, which will be repeated in certain time, will simply select some buildings and activate them, and so on. And the buildings that the player destroys, they return to the so-called pool, and the script will be able to build them again. We'll see how it will work. In my head it sounds like a good and simple plan. So I managed to build almost the entire city. I leave free space in case I manage to model more buildings, but I think it's all working great. At 3 p.m. we have the first gameplay, finally, which looks like a proper game. After about 18 or 19 hours, we see how the game is played for the first time, and if I were not satisfied at all, I wouldn't have time to change it. And that's probably my problem, because I focus on functionality from the beginning. I try to write perfect code so I don't have to rewrite it again. And I got to the first prototype after such a long time, and that's the case with almost every project I create. But anyway, I'm happy it works, and it could be fun. It just needs to fine-tune variables, the rewards for destroying buildings and roads, so that the player has a challenge, and also not to make it too difficult, just tweak the difficulty, balance it a little bit. I also improved the construction. Previously, several things were built at once, but now it is gradually. It looks great to me, and I added animations to make it come alive a bit, and it's not so static. Just out of curiosity, I wanted to try exporting the game for the web. How should it be for the Jam? And what I found out, I don't have the necessary plugins installed. Okay, so I have to install it, and yet another problem. For web export, Unity has to change the colors, and that completely changed the appearance of my game. It looks horrible, but it's just game for a game jam, so I think it would be good. And I'll try to do something with it later. After several attempts, I finally succeeded and built a version that works in the browser. Just to be sure, I tried uploading it to itch.io, and everything works great. So I came back to real work. I've been procrastinating a bit. It's almost 7 p.m. so 20 hours behind and another 24 ahead of me. Well, I'm jumping from one thing to another. I started working a little on disasters. The first one is a snowstorm. In Blender I copied the sphere a few times, scaled it, tweaked it, and changed the positions, and we have a decent looking cloud. And that's it. I'm happy about it. Next was the tornado. I'm not satisfied at all with that, but what I can do. Particles are not my forte, but we must go on. Time is slowly running out. On Sunday morning, I immediately sat down at the PC and saw what was still in front of me. But of course, I started with bugs fixing. It bothered me from the beginning. Why, when building roads and buildings, but you can see it the most with the roads. It always puts one tile of road space, one tile of road space, and so on. I discovered it right away in the for loop. I go through the children of the pool objects and always activate the object, road, and change its parent so it's not built again for the next build cycle. But that's exactly the problem. I always change the parent for that particular object right away as soon as I activated the object. So the next object index is no longer 1, but it's 0. But the loop continues with index 1. But there is next object because I moved the previous one. Do you get it? I can explain it better, but the important thing is that I fix it. I moved smoothly from bug fixing to modifying the gameplay, changing prices and how long it takes before you can use a disaster and so on. The other thing that I have had in mind for a long time and I wanted to implement is some kind of feedback, how much the buildings are destroyed. You know, I originally wanted to make a destroyed model for every building, but in order to save time, I finally came up with a solution that if the building has less than half of health, it starts to smoke from it. For me, it's the simplest and best solution. Finally, I started work on other disasters. It could be done much more better, but like I said, particles are something that I'm not good with at all. So this is how it will to be. All 6 disasters I have are finished: tornado, fire, storm, meteor, tsunami and earthquake. I would like to add some others to the game. Let's see how many I can manage. I made a couple of simple icons and buttons, so let's try to put them into the game. Of course, as usual, something isn't installed. It also didn't automatically cut the sprites well either, but nothing that couldn't be easily fixed. I guess it's not top design, but good for me. Now, I have to edit the price tags a bit and somehow let the player know that he already has his disaster ready, probably with some kind of flashing or something. I could go on like this forever. I still managed to do quite a bit of work. It's Sunday, it's getting close to the finish line. I just tweaked the game as much as I could, made some screenshots, a logo and opening image and uploaded it to itch.io, even 2 hours ahead of time. I really had it enough in those 2 days, but I'm glad that I participated in this game jam. It was fun and I proved to myself that I can finish the game. I guess I just need to have a firm deadline. Anyway, you can try my game and other game as well on itch.io, link in the description. There are almost 7,000 games, that's an unbelievable number. And now enjoy gameplay of the Town Devastator. See you in the next video, bye!